Something unexpected is waiting within these pages, a story often overlooked, yet filled with moments that will leave you stunned, challenged, and deeply moved. What if the journey you thought was ordinary was actually marked by fire, fear, miracles, and unforgettable encounters with God? This is where the ground trembles beneath rebellion, where what seems impossible suddenly becomes reality, where even a donkey speaks truth when a prophet refuses to listen. The wilderness is not silent. It echoes with cries of doubt, songs of deliverance, and the weight of choices that shape an entire generation. Scripture tells us, "The Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light." Exodus chapter 13, verse 21. God was not distant. His presence was visible, constant, undeniable. Yet even in the presence of miracles, hearts can waver, fear can take hold, and decisions made in moments of doubt can alter destiny forever. In this story, leaders are tested beyond their limits. Faith is stretched in the face of uncertainty, and consequences arrive with sobering weight. There is a moment when Scripture declares, "Your bodies shall fall in this wilderness." Numbers chapter 14, verse 29. A chilling reminder that unbelief carries a cost, and yet, grace continues to move. Provision still appears where there should be none, because even when people falter, God's promises remain firm. This is a story of movement, of testing, of failure, and of divine faithfulness that refuses to break. Prepare yourself. What lies ahead will challenge what you thought you knew. It will reveal the weight of obedience and the danger of turning away. You are about to witness one of the most intense and revealing journeys in all of Scripture. A full year had passed since Israel walked free from Egypt's grip. They were now settled in the wilderness of Sinai, and at this moment, a clear directive came from God to Moses. There was a need to determine the number of men within the nation who were prepared for battle. In chapter 1, verse 2, Moses received these instructions. Conduct a count of the entire Israelite community according to their clans and family lines, recording every man individually by name. However, this count was not meant to include everyone. Verse 3 clarifies the scope. Moses and Aaron were to register only those men who were 20 years old or older and capable of serving in the army. Moses was not assigned this responsibility alone. God appointed one representative from each of the 12 tribes to assist in this task. These men were not chosen at random. They were recognized leaders within their tribes, heads of their families, and individuals held in high regard. Their names are carefully recorded in verses 5 through 15. Figures such as Elizur, son of Shedeur from Reuben, Shelumiel, son of Zurishaddai from Simeon, and Nahshon, son of Amminadab from Judah. The counting proceeded methodically, moving from one tribe to the next. Each eligible man, strong of age and ready for military service, was accounted for. The tribe of Reuben numbered 46,500 men. Simeon followed with 59,300. Gad contributed 45,650. As the count continued, Judah stood out with the largest number at 74,600, while Manasseh recorded the smallest total at 32,200. When the process was complete, the final number is revealed in verse 46. Every man 20 years old or older, capable of serving in Israel's army, was counted according to his family line. The total reached 603,450, yet one tribe was intentionally excluded from this census. The Levites were not included among those counted for military duty. God gave Moses explicit instructions regarding them in verses 49 and 50. The tribe of Levi was not to be numbered with the rest of Israel. Instead, they were assigned responsibility over the tabernacle of the covenant, including all its furnishings and everything connected to it. Their role was distinct. They were set apart for service connected directly to the presence of God, rather than for warfare. Order within the camp was not left to chance. God established a clear and structured arrangement for how the people were to live and move. In chapter 2, verse 2, Moses was told that the Israelites were to camp around the tent of meeting, each tribe positioned under its own standard and banner, representing their families, while maintaining a respectful distance from the sacred center. This arrangement formed a large organized square, with the tabernacle placed at its heart. On the eastern side, facing the rising sun, 3 tribes set up camp. Judah took the lead position closest to the entrance, with 74,600 men. Alongside them were Issachar with 54,400 and Zebulun with 57,400. Altogether, the Eastern Division totaled 186,400 men, and whenever the camp moved, they would go first. To the south, the division of Reuben was stationed. Reuben's numbers stood at 46,500, joined by Simeon's 59,300 and Gad's 45,650. This southern group reached a total of 151,150 men, and they would follow second in the order of movement. At the center of everything was a unique formation. As described in verse 17, the tent of meeting, along with the camp of the Levites, would travel in the middle of all the tribes. They would move in the same arrangement as they camped, each in their designated place. This central position ensured that the sacred objects and the place of worship were surrounded and protected at all times. On the western side, Ephraim led with 40,500 men. Manasseh followed with 32,200, and Benjamin added 35,400. Together, the western camp totaled 108,100 men, and they would advance third when the journey continued. Finally, the northern side completed the formation. Dan led this division with 62,700 men. Asher contributed 41,500, and Naphtali brought 53,400. The total for the northern group reached 157,600, and they would move last. Verse 34 captures the obedience of the people in carrying out these instructions. The Israelites followed every command given through Moses, arranging themselves exactly as directed, each tribe in its proper place, each group under its banner, moving forward in ordered unity whenever the time came. The people of Israel carried out all that the Lord had instructed Moses. They arranged their camp according to their banners, and they set out in that same order, each with their clan and family. This arrangement went far beyond strategy or organization. It was an act of reverence expressed in movement, with God's presence dwelling at the very center of his people. The tribe of Levi held a distinct role. While the other tribes were allotted land as their inheritance, the Levites were given a different portion, service in the dwelling place of God. Chapter 3 begins with God calling Moses up Mount Sinai, and in verse 6 he gives this command: "Bring the tribe of Levi and present them to Aaron the priest to assist him." The Levites were set apart in a unique way, but why them? God made it clear in verses 12 and 13. "I have taken the Levites from among the Israelites in place of every firstborn male. The Levites are mine, for all the firstborn are mine. When I struck down every firstborn in Egypt, I set apart for myself every firstborn in Israel, both human and animal. They belong to me. I am the Lord." In this way, the Levites stood as representatives, taking the place of every firstborn son throughout the nation. The Levites themselves were divided into 3 family groups, each descended from one of Levi's sons. The Gershonites camped on the west side of the tabernacle. Their responsibilities, described in verses 25 and 26, included caring for the tabernacle and tent, its coverings, the curtain at the entrance to the tent of meeting, the curtains of the courtyard, the curtain at the entrance to the courtyard surrounding the tabernacle and altar, along with the ropes and everything connected to their use. The Kohathites were entrusted with the most sacred duties. They camped on the south side, and verse 31 explains their responsibilities. They were charged with the care of the ark, the table, the lampstand, the altars, the sacred articles used in ministry, the inner curtain, and everything associated with their use. Yet there was a strict condition. They were not permitted to touch these holy items directly. Aaron's sons had to carefully cover them first. If the Kohathites touched them uncovered, it would result in death. The Merarites camped on the north side and were responsible for the structural framework. Verse 36 outlines their duties. They cared for the frames of the tabernacle, its crossbars, posts, bases, and all related equipment. They also handled the posts of the surrounding courtyard, along with their bases, tent pegs, and ropes. Moses, Aaron, and Aaron's sons camped on the east side, directly in front of the tabernacle entrance. They were entrusted with guarding the sanctuary itself and bearing ultimate responsibility for its care. When God instructed Moses to take a census of the Levites, the count came to 22,000 males 1 month old and older. However, the number of firstborn males among the rest of Israel was 22,273. For the additional 273, verse 47 provides the instruction: collect 5 shekels for each one, according to the sanctuary shekel, which weighs 20 gerahs. This redemption payment was given to Aaron and his sons, completing the substitution. The holiness of God's presence required that the camp reflect that holiness in every detail. In chapter 5, verses 2 and 3, God gave further instructions to preserve purity within the camp. Command the Israelites to send away from the camp anyone who has a defiling skin disease, any discharge, or who is ceremonially unclean because of a dead body. Send away both male and female. Send them outside the camp so they will not defile their camp, where I dwell among them. This directive was not an act of rejection, but a safeguard. God's presence among them required separation from impurity so that access to Him would not be lost. God also established a clear principle of restoration when wrong had been committed. Verses 6 and 7 explain, if a man or woman wrongs another and is unfaithful to the Lord, that person is guilty and must confess the sin they have committed. They must make full restitution for what they have done, add 1/5 of its value, and give it to the one they have wronged. If the injured person had died and left no close relative, the restitution was given to the priest, along with a ram for atonement. Then a difficult and sensitive situation is addressed. What should be done when a husband suspects his wife of unfaithfulness but has no proof or witnesses? Verses 12 through 14 describe the circumstance. If a wife becomes unfaithful and her actions remain hidden, with no witnesses and no evidence, yet her husband is overcome with jealousy, whether his suspicion is justified or not, he is to bring her before the priest. The priest would then carry out a specific procedure. The woman would stand before the Lord as the priest took holy water in a clay vessel and mixed it with dust from the tabernacle floor. He would loosen her hair and place in her hands the grain offering for jealousy, while he himself held the bitter water that brings a curse. Then the priest would place her under oath. Verses 21 and 22 record the words, may the Lord cause you to become a curse among your people when He makes your womb miscarry and your abdomen swell. May this water that brings a curse enter your body so that your abdomen swells or your womb miscarries. The woman would respond, Amen, so be it. If she was guilty, the consequences would manifest physically and be visible to all. If she was innocent, verse 28 declares, she will be cleared of guilt and will be able to have children. In this way, judgment was placed entirely in God's hands, removing it from human assumption and preventing injustice. God also made a way for individuals to set themselves apart to Him in a special manner through a voluntary vow. Chapter 6 begins with instructions for the Nazarite Vow, a period of dedication to the Lord. Verses 2 and 3 outline the first requirement. If a man or woman wants to make a special vow, a vow of dedication to the Lord as a Nazarite, they must abstain from wine and other fermented drink. They must not drink vinegar made from wine or other fermented drink. They must not drink grape juice or eat grapes or raisins. Everything produced from the grapevine was to be avoided. The second requirement was outward and unmistakable. Verse 5 states, during the entire period of the Nazarite vow, no razor may be used on the head. They must be holy until the time of their dedication to the Lord is completed. They must let their hair grow long. Their uncut hair became a visible sign of their consecration. The third requirement demanded careful discipline. Verse 6 says, throughout the period of their dedication to the Lord, the Nazarite must not go near a dead body. Even in moments of personal loss, they were not to defile themselves. Verses 7 through 8 further clarify that even if a father, mother, brother, or sister died, they were not to make themselves unclean because the symbol of their dedication, their hair, rested upon them. All the days of their vow, they were set apart to the Lord. If someone were to die suddenly in their presence, defiling them unintentionally, the process of restoration was detailed. They were to shave their head on the 7th day, and on the 8th day, bring 2 doves or 2 young pigeons to the priest at the entrance to the tent of meeting. One would be offered as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering to make atonement. They were then to consecrate their head again and restart the period of their vow, as the previous days would not count due to the defilement. These instructions extended even to their closest relatives. Verse 7 makes it clear that if a father, mother, brother, or sister passed away, they were not to become ceremonially unclean, because the sign of their consecration to God rested upon their head. If death occurred suddenly in their presence and they were unintentionally defiled, the process required them to begin again. On the seventh day, they were to shave their head, and on the eighth day, they were to present the required offerings. After this, they would restart the period of their vow from the beginning. When the time of dedication was fully completed, verses 13 through 20 outline a detailed ceremony. This included burnt offerings, grain offerings, and fellowship offerings, followed by shaving the head and placing the hair into the fire beneath the fellowship offering. This vow demonstrated that holiness was not reserved solely for priests. Any individual who desired could set themselves apart in devotion to God. Immediately after the instructions regarding this vow, God provided Aaron and his sons with words of blessing to pronounce over the people. Verses 24 to 26 contain some of the most cherished and powerful expressions in all of Scripture. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. Verse 27 explains the significance of these words. Through them, God's name would be placed upon the people of Israel, and he himself would bless them. This was far more than a simple expression of goodwill. It marked them as belonging to him and under his protection. After Moses completed the setting up of the tabernacle, he anointed and consecrated it along with all its furnishings, including the altar. The leaders of Israel, the same individuals who had assisted in the census, came forward with offerings. Chapter 7 verse 3 records their collective gift: 6 covered carts and 12 oxen, with each leader contributing an ox and every 2 leaders sharing a cart. These were presented before the tabernacle. God instructed Moses to accept these gifts and distribute them among the Levites according to their responsibilities. The Gershonites received 2 carts and 4 oxen to transport the curtains and coverings. The Merarites were given 4 carts and 8 oxen because they were responsible for the heavier structural components such as frames and posts. The Kohathites, however, were not given any carts. Verse 9 explains that they were assigned to carry the holy objects on their shoulders, emphasizing the sacredness of their task. Following this, the tribal leaders brought offerings for the dedication of the altar. God established a precise order for this presentation. Verse 11 records his instruction that one leader would bring his offering each day for the dedication. For 12 consecutive days, each leader presented identical offerings, one per day. On the first day, Nahshon son of Amminadab from the tribe of Judah brought his offering, a silver plate weighing 130 shekels, a silver sprinkling bowl weighing 70 shekels, both filled with fine flour mixed with oil, a gold dish weighing 10 shekels filled with incense, a young bull, a ram, and a 1-year-old male lamb for a burnt offering, a male goat for a sin offering, and for the fellowship offering, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 male goats, and 5 male lambs a year old. Each day followed the same pattern. Nathanael from Issachar came on the second day, Eliab from Zebulun on the third, Elizur from Reuben on the fourth, Shelumiel from Simeon on the fifth, Eliasaph from Gad on the sixth, Elishama from Ephraim on the seventh, Gamaliel from Manasseh on the eighth, Abidan from Benjamin on the ninth, Ahiezer from Dan on the 10th, Pagiel from Asher on the 11th. Finally, Ahira from Naphtali presented his offering on the 12th day. Though every offering was identical in value and form, each tribe was given its own appointed time, its own moment of recognition. Verses 84 through 88 provide the full tally. 12 silver plates, 12 silver sprinkling bowls, 12 gold dishes, 12 bulls, 12 rams, 12 male lambs, and 12 male goats. For the fellowship offerings, there were 24 oxen, 60 rams, 60 male goats, and 60 male lambs. The dedication spanned 12 days, yet its meaning endured. Each tribe held equal importance before God. God had already been communicating with Moses within the tabernacle, but verse 89 of chapter 7 reveals a remarkable detail. When Moses entered the tent of meeting to speak with the Lord, he heard the voice addressing him from between the two cherubim above the atonement cover on the Ark of the Covenant. From that place, God spoke directly to him. Further instructions followed, including the command to make 2 trumpets. Chapter 10, verses 2 and 3 describe their purpose. They were to be crafted from hammered silver and used to gather the community and to signal the movement of the camps. When both trumpets were sounded, the entire assembly would gather at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Different sounds carried different meanings. A single trumpet would summon the leaders alone. Both trumpets together would call the whole congregation. Short blasts signaled that it was time for the camps to move. First, the tribes on the east, followed by those on the south. The trumpets also served a role in times of conflict. Verse 9 gives a promise. When they went into battle in their land against an oppressor, the sounding of the trumpets would bring them to remembrance before the Lord their God, and he would deliver them from their enemies. They were also to be used during times of celebration and worship. Verse 10 adds that during days of rejoicing, appointed festivals, and new moon observances, the trumpets were to be sounded over the burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. In this way, these moments would stand as a memorial before God, marking both their worship and their dependence on him. I am the Lord your God. Yet a practical question remained for Israel. How would they know when to advance and when to remain where they were? The answer came through a visible sign of divine direction. Chapter 9 explains that whenever the cloud covered the tabernacle, it took on the appearance of fire during the night. Verses 17 through 19 outline the pattern. Whenever the cloud rose from above the tent, the Israelites would break camp. Wherever the cloud came to rest, there they would settle. Their movements were entirely governed by the Lord's command. At his instruction, they encamped, and at his instruction they set out. As long as the cloud remained over the tabernacle, they stayed where they were. If it lingered for an extended period, they continued waiting in obedience and did not move forward. At times, the cloud remained only a few days. At other moments, it stayed from evening until morning. There were even instances when it rested there for a month or as long as a full year. Verse 22 emphasizes this clearly. Whether the cloud stayed for 2 days, a month, or a year, the Israelites remained in place and did not set out. But the moment it lifted, they moved. Their schedule was not their own to determine. They were entirely dependent on God's timing. Then came a significant turning point. In the second year, on the 20th day of the second month, exactly 13 months after their departure from Egypt, the cloud finally lifted from above the tabernacle. Verses 11 and 12 of chapter 10 record this moment in precise detail. On that day, the cloud rose from the tabernacle of the covenant law, and the Israelites set out from the wilderness of Sinai. They traveled in stages until the cloud came to rest in the wilderness of Paran. The journey toward the promised land had formally begun. The tribes advanced in a carefully arranged order. The division of Judah led the procession. Following them came the Gershonites and the Merarites, who carried the framework and coverings of the tabernacle. Next was the division of Reuben. After them came the Kohathites, entrusted with transporting the sacred objects. The camp of Ephraim moved after them, and finally, the division of Dan brought up the rear, acting as a guard for all the others. Moses also extended an invitation to his father-in-law, Hobab, urging him to join the journey. In verse 29, he said, "We are setting out for the place about which the Lord said, 'I will give it to you.' Come with us, and we will treat you well, for the Lord has promised good things to Israel." Whenever the ark set out, Moses would declare, as recorded in verse 35, "Rise up, Lord, may your enemies be scattered, may your foes flee before you." And when it came to rest, he would say, "Return, Lord, to the countless thousands of Israel." They were moving forward, guided by the presence of God, following wherever he chose to lead. However, the journey that began with such order quickly encountered trouble. Chapter 11 verse 1 reports that the people began to complain about their hardships within the hearing of the Lord. When he heard them, his anger was kindled, and fire from the Lord burned among them, consuming some on the outskirts of the camp. The people cried out to Moses, and when he prayed, the fire subsided. That place was named Taberah, meaning burning, yet the discontent did not end there. Verse 4 describes how a group among them developed a craving for other food, and soon the Israelites joined in, weeping and saying, "If only we had meat to eat." They began to recall the food they had in Egypt: fish, cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic, meals they remembered as abundant and satisfying. Now they found themselves weary of manna, the provision God had given them daily. Verse 6 captures their frustration. "But now we have lost our appetite. We never see anything but this manna." Moses heard the family standing at the entrances of their tents, weeping openly. The Lord's anger burned intensely, and Moses himself became deeply troubled. Overwhelmed by the burden of leadership, he cried out to God in verses 11 through 15, questioning why he had been given such a heavy responsibility and even asking for his life to be taken rather than continuing under such strain. In response, God instructed Moses to gather 70 elders of Israel. He took some of the spirit that rested on Moses and placed it upon these men, enabling them to share the weight of leadership. Then God addressed the people's craving by promising them meat, not for a single day or a few days, but for an entire month until they grew sick of it. This would happen because they had rejected the Lord who was among them. God sent quail in abundance. Verse 31 explains that a wind went out from the Lord and drove quail in from the sea, scattering them all around the camp to a depth of about 2 cubits, extending as far as a day's journey in every direction. The people gathered the birds continuously throughout that day, the night, and into the following day. Even the one who gathered the least collected 10 homers. They spread the meat out around the camp. But while the meat was still between their teeth, before they could finish eating it, the Lord's anger flared up again. Verse 33 states that he struck the people with a severe plague. Many died there, and the place was named Kibroth Hattaavah, meaning graves of craving, because there they buried those who had given in to their intense desire for other food. Tension also arose within Moses' own family. Chapter 12 begins with Miriam and Aaron speaking against him because of his Cushite wife. Yet verse 2 reveals their deeper concern. Has the Lord spoken only through Moses? Hasn't he also spoken through us? The Lord heard their words and responded immediately. He summoned Moses, Aaron, and Miriam to the tabernacle and descended in a pillar of cloud. Calling Aaron and Miriam forward, he declared in verses 6 through 8, "Listen to my words. When there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, reveal myself to them in visions. I speak to them in dreams. But this is not true of my servant Moses. He is faithful in all my house. With him I speak face to face, clearly and not in riddles. He sees the form of the Lord. Why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses?" When the cloud lifted, Miriam was afflicted with a serious skin disease. Her skin became white like snow. Aaron turned to Moses and pleaded for mercy, confessing their wrongdoing. Moses cried out to God, saying, "Please, God, heal her." The Lord answered that she must be shut out of the camp for 7 days, in the same way one would be if disgraced before her father. The whole assembly remained at Hazeroth until Miriam was restored after the 7 days of separation. From there, they moved on and encamped in the wilderness of Paran. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Send men to scout out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the people of Israel. From each ancestral tribe, send 1 man, each a recognized leader among them." So Moses sent 12 men, one from every tribe, including Caleb from the tribe of Judah and Hoshea, son of Nun from Ephraim, whom Moses called Joshua. He gave them clear instructions, saying, "Go up through the Negev and into the hill country. See what the land is like, and whether the people who live there are strong or weak, few or many. Observe whether they dwell in camps or in fortified cities. Examine the soil, whether it is fertile or poor, and whether there are trees in it or not. Be courageous and bring back some of the fruit of the land." This took place during the season when the first grapes were ripening. They went up and explored the land for 40 days, traveling from the wilderness of Zin as far as Rehob, near Lebo Hamath. When they came to the valley of Eshcol, they cut down a branch bearing a single cluster of grapes so large that it had to be carried on a pole between 2 men. Along with it, they brought pomegranates and figs. That place was named Eshcol because of the cluster the Israelites cut there. At the end of 40 days, they returned to Moses, Aaron, and the entire congregation at Kadesh in the wilderness of Paran. They reported to them and showed them the fruit of the land. Their account began with these words: "We went into the land where you sent us, and it truly flows with milk and honey. Here is its fruit." But then their tone shifted sharply. "However, the people who live in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and exceedingly large. We also saw the descendants of Anak there." They went on to describe the Amalekites living in the Negev, the Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites dwelling in the hill country, and the Canaanites along the sea and the Jordan. Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, "We should go up at once and take possession of it, for we are well able to overcome it." But the other men who had gone with him spoke in opposition, saying, "We are not able to go up against these people, for they are stronger than we are." They spread a discouraging report among the Israelites, saying, "The land we passed through to explore consumes its inhabitants. All the people we saw there are of great stature. We saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim, and we seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we appeared the same to them." That night, the entire community raised their voices and wept aloud. All the Israelites grumbled against Moses and Aaron, and the whole assembly said to them, "If only we had died in Egypt, or even here in the wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us into this land to fall by the sword? Our wives and our children will become prey. Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt?" They even began to discuss appointing another leader to take them back. Then Moses and Aaron fell face down before the whole assembly. Joshua son of Nun and Caleb son of Jephunneh tore their garments and spoke to all the congregation, saying, "The land we passed through and explored is exceedingly good. If the Lord delights in us, he will bring us into this land and give it to us, a land flowing with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord, and do not fear the people of the land, for they will be as food for us. Their protection has been removed, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them." But the entire assembly talked about stoning them. Then the glory of the Lord appeared at the tent of meeting to all the Israelites. The Lord said to Moses, "How long will this people despise me? How long will they refuse to trust me, despite all the signs I have performed among them? I will strike them with a plague and disinherit them, and I will make you into a nation greater and mightier than they." Moses interceded, appealing to the Lord's name among the nations and to his revealed character. He reminded the Lord of his own words, that he is slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love, forgiving iniquity and transgression, yet not leaving the guilty unpunished. He asked that the people be forgiven according to the greatness of his mercy, just as he had pardoned them from Egypt until now. The Lord answered that he would pardon them as Moses had requested, but consequences would remain. He declared that none of those who had seen his glory and the signs he performed in Egypt and in the wilderness, yet continued to test him and disobey, would see the land he promised to their ancestors. Not one of them would enter it. He pronounced a specific judgment. "In this wilderness your bodies will fall, every one of you 20 years old or more, who was counted in the census and who grumbled against me. Not one of you will enter the land I swore with uplifted hand to make your home, except Caleb son of Jephunneh and Joshua son of Nun. The children whom they feared would be taken as plunder would be the ones to inherit the land their parents rejected." They would wander in the wilderness for 40 years, 1 year for each day the land had been explored, bearing the consequences of their unfaithfulness until that entire generation had come to an end. As for the 10 men who brought back the negative report, they were struck down by a plague before the Lord. Only Joshua and Caleb remained alive from among those who had gone to explore the land. When Moses reported these words to the Israelites, the people mourned deeply. Early the next morning they set out toward the hill country, saying, "We are ready to go up to the place the Lord promised. We have sinned." But Moses said, "Why are you now disobeying the command of the Lord? This will not succeed. Do not go up, because the Lord is not with you. You will be defeated by your enemies." He warned them that the Amalekites and Canaanites were there ahead of them, and that they would fall by the sword because they had turned away from the Lord. In their presumption, however, they went up toward the hill country. though neither Moses nor the Ark of the Covenant moved from the camp. Then the Amalekites and the Canaanites who lived in that region came down and struck them down, driving them back as far as Hormah. After this judgment on the generation that refused to enter the land, the Lord spoke again to Moses with instructions that looked ahead to the future. He said, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when you enter the land you are to inhabit, which I am giving you. Even with the years of wandering ahead, the promise remains certain for those who would follow." He gave detailed instructions concerning offerings. When anyone presented a burnt offering or sacrifice to fulfill a vow, or as a free will offering, or during appointed festivals, they were to include a grain offering and a drink offering. With a lamb, 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with a 1/4 hin of olive oil was to be offered, along with a 1/4 hin of wine as a drink offering. Greater amounts were required for a ram, and even more for a bull, each according to its measure. These instructions applied equally to all. The same law governed both the native-born and the foreigner residing among them. This was to be a lasting ordinance for generations to come, establishing that all stood alike before the Lord. Further directions were given for unintentional sins. If the whole community sinned without realizing it, they were to offer a young bull as a burnt offering, together with its grain and drink offerings, along with a male goat as a sin offering. In this way, atonement would be made for the entire assembly, and they would be forgiven since it was done unintentionally, and they had brought their offering before the Lord for their error. The priest would carry out the act of atonement, and forgiveness would be granted. When a person committed a sin unintentionally, the required offering was a female goat in its first year. Yet verse 30 establishes a clear distinction. Anyone who sins with deliberate defiance, whether native-born or a foreigner, speaks against the Lord and must be removed from among the people of Israel. Scripture immediately follows this command with a real example of such willful disobedience. While the Israelites were journeying through the wilderness, a man was discovered gathering wood on the Sabbath day. Those who found him brought him before Moses, Aaron, and the entire assembly. He was kept under guard because the proper course of action had not yet been revealed. Then in verse 35, the judgment from God is recorded. The Lord said to Moses, "The man must be put to death." The whole assembly was commanded to take him outside the camp and stone him. So they led him outside and carried out the sentence exactly as the Lord had instructed. After this, God spoke again to Moses, instructing him to tell the Israelites to make tassels on the corners of their garments, with a blue cord in each one. Verse 39 explains their purpose. These tassels would serve as a reminder so that whenever they looked at them, they would remember all the commands of the Lord and obey them, guarding themselves from following the desires of their own hearts and eyes, which could lead them into unfaithfulness. Korah, son of Izhar, was a Levite from the Kohathite clan, the very group entrusted with carrying the most sacred items of the tabernacle. Yet Korah was not satisfied with his role. He joined forces with Dathan and Abiram, descendants of Reuben, along with 250 respected leaders from the community. Together, they rose in opposition to Moses. Chapter 16 verse 3 records their accusation. They assembled against Moses and Aaron and said, "You have gone too far. The entire community is holy, every one of them, and the Lord is with them. Why then do you exalt yourselves above the Lord's assembly?" When Moses heard this, he fell face down. He then addressed Korah and his followers, proposing a test. Verses 6 and 7 record his words. "You, Korah, and all your company are to do this. Take censers, and tomorrow put burning coals and incense in them before the Lord. The one whom the Lord chooses will be the one who is holy. You Levites have gone too far." Moses continued, reminding Korah of the privilege he already possessed. Verses 9 and 10 emphasize this point. "Is it not enough for you that the God of Israel has set you apart from the rest of the community and brought you near himself to perform the work at the Lord's tabernacle and to stand before the people and minister to them? He has brought you and all your fellow Levites near him. Yet now you are seeking the priesthood as well." Moses then called for Dathan and Abiram, but they refused to come. Their reply, found in verses 13 and 14, revealed deep resentment. "Is it not enough that you have brought us up out of a land flowing with milk and honey to make us die in the wilderness? And now you also want to rule over us?" Furthermore, you have not brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey, or given us an inheritance of fields and vineyards. Do you intend to treat these men like slaves? We will not come." They spoke of Egypt as though it were a land of blessing. Moses became deeply angered and said to the Lord in verse 15, "Do not accept their offering. I have not taken so much as a donkey from them, nor have I wronged any of them." The following morning, each man took his censer, placed fire and incense in it, and stood at the entrance of the tent of meeting alongside Moses and Aaron. Korah had gathered the entire assembly against them at the entrance of the tabernacle. Then, as recorded in verse 19, the glory of the Lord appeared to the whole assembly. God spoke to Moses and Aaron with severe words in verse 21. "Separate yourselves from this assembly, so that I may put an end to them at once." But Moses and Aaron fell face down and cried out in verse 22, "O God, the God who gives breath to all living things, will you be angry with the entire assembly when only one man sins?" The Lord instructed Moses to tell the people to move away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Moses went directly to Dathan and Abiram, with the elders of Israel following him. In verse 26, he warned the people, "Move away from the tents of these wicked men. Do not touch anything belonging to them, or you will be swept away because of all their sins." Dathan and Abiram came out and stood defiantly at the entrances of their tents, together with their wives, children, and little ones. Then Moses made a public declaration, recorded in verses 28 through 30. "This is how you will know that the Lord has sent me to do all these things, and that it was not my own idea. If these men die a natural death and experience the fate common to all humanity, then the Lord has not sent me. But if the Lord creates something new, and the earth opens its mouth and swallows them along with everything that belongs to them, and they go down alive into the grave, then you will know that these men have treated the Lord with contempt." As soon as Moses finished speaking, the ground beneath them split apart. Verse 32 describes the event. "The earth opened its mouth and swallowed them, their households, and all those associated with Korah, along with their possessions. They went down alive into the realm of the dead, and the earth closed over them. At the same time, fire came out from the Lord and consumed the 250 men who were offering incense. The Lord then instructed Moses to have Eleazar collect the bronze censers and hammer them into sheets to overlay the altar." Verse 40 explains the purpose. This would serve as a reminder to the Israelites that no one except a descendant of Aaron should come to burn incense before the Lord, or they would become like Korah and his followers. The day after this rebellion, the entire Israelite community began to grumble against Moses and Aaron. Verse 41 of chapter 16 records their complaint, "You have killed the Lord's people." Then the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory of the Lord appeared. God said to Moses in verse 45, "Get away from this assembly so I can put an end to them at once." Immediately Moses instructed Aaron in verse 46, "Take your censer and put incense in it, along with burning coals from the altar, and hurry to the assembly to make atonement for them. Wrath has gone out from the Lord, the plague has begun." Aaron ran into the midst of the assembly. Verse 48 captures the moment. He stood between the living and the dead, and the plague was stopped. However, 14,700 people had already died. To settle the matter of leadership once and for all, God told Moses to collect 12 staffs, one from each tribal leader, with Aaron's name written on the staff representing Levi. Chapter 17, verse 5 declares, "The staff belonging to the man I choose will sprout, and I will put an end to the constant grumbling of the Israelites against you." The next day, Moses entered the tent, and verse 8 describes what he saw. The staff representing the tribe of Levi, bearing Aaron's name, had not only sprouted, but had also budded, blossomed, and produced almonds. Then God instructed Moses in verse 10 to place Aaron's staff back in front of the Ark of the Covenant law, to be kept as a sign. As a sign directed toward a defiant people, the reaction was immediate and filled with dread. The people cried out in fear. In verses 12 and 13, their voices echoed, "We will perish. We are undone. All of us are undone. Anyone who even approaches the tabernacle of the Lord will die. Are we all destined to die?" Their panic revealed how deeply they misunderstood the boundaries of holiness and the provision God had already established. In response, God clarified the roles and responsibilities in chapter 18. He spoke directly to Aaron, saying in verse 1, You, your sons, and your family are to carry the responsibility for offenses connected with the sanctuary, and you and your sons alone are to carry the responsibility for offenses connected with the priesthood. This charge set a clear distinction. The burden of sacred duty rested on Aaron and his descendants, marking them as guardians of what was holy. The priests stood as a protective barrier between the people and the danger of mishandling sacred things. By fulfilling their duties with care and obedience, they preserved life within the community. God also established how they would be sustained. In verse 20, a defining statement is given. You will have no inheritance in their land, nor any portion among them. I am your portion and your inheritance among the Israelites. While others would receive land, Aaron and his line were given something greater, the Lord himself as their inheritance. The Levites, who served alongside the priests, were assigned a different provision. They received the tithes of the people as compensation for their work in the tent of meeting. Yet even they were not exempt from giving. Verse 26 instructs that they were to present a tenth of those tithes to Aaron, the priest, acknowledging that all provision ultimately came from God and was to be honored accordingly. Then God introduced a distinct and solemn purification practice through Moses and Aaron. Chapter 19 begins with these words in verse 2. This is a requirement of the law that the Lord has commanded. The Israelites were to bring a red heifer, an animal entirely red in color, without defect or blemish, and one that had never been placed under a yoke. Every detail mattered. The animal had to be whole, untouched by labor, and set apart for this purpose alone. Verse 3 outlines the process. The heifer was to be given to Eleazar the priest and taken outside the camp. There, it would be slaughtered in his presence. Eleazar would then take some of its blood and sprinkle it 7 times in the direction of the tabernacle. Afterward, the entire animal, its hide, flesh, blood, and internal parts, was to be burned completely. Into that fire, cedar wood, hyssop, and scarlet wool were added, each element carrying symbolic weight tied to cleansing and purification. A person who was ceremonially clean would then gather the ashes and place them in a clean location outside the camp. Verse 9 explains their purpose. These ashes were to be preserved by the community for use in the water of cleansing. This water served as a means of purification from sin, particularly in connection with death. When someone came into contact with a dead body, these ashes would be mixed with water and used in a specific ritual. Verse 11 establishes the principle clearly. Whoever touches a human corpse will be unclean for 7 days. Restoration required action. The person had to be sprinkled with the cleansing water on the 3rd day and again on the 7th day. Only then would they be considered clean. The warning in verse 13 is severe. Anyone who refused this purification after touching a dead body would defile the Lord's tabernacle. Such a person was to be cut off from Israel, separated from the community because they had treated holiness with disregard. The law also addressed multiple situations involving death. Anyone inside a tent where a person died became unclean for 7 days. Objects within that space were affected as well. Outside the camp, as stated in verse 16, anyone who touched a person killed by violence, someone who died naturally, a human bone, or even a grave would become unclean for 7 days. These regulations ensured that the presence of death, which stood in contrast to God's holiness, was carefully managed within the community. This system would prove essential throughout the 40 years in the wilderness, a period marked by continual loss and the reality of mortality. Chapter 20 opens by marking the passage of time. In the first month, the entire Israelite community arrived at the desert of Zin and settled at Kadesh. There, a brief but weighty statement is recorded in verse 1. Miriam died and was buried. The sister of Moses and Aaron, who had stood at the beginning of their journey, was now gone. Soon after, the familiar crisis returned. There was no water. The people gathered against Moses and Aaron once again, voicing their frustration and despair. In verses 4 and 5, they complained, "Why did you bring the Lord's community into this wilderness, that we and our livestock should die here? Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to this miserable place? It has no grain, no figs, no grapevines, no pomegranates, and there is no water to drink." Their words revealed not only physical thirst, but a continued struggle to trust. Moses and Aaron responded by going to the entrance of the tent of meeting and falling face down. The glory of the Lord appeared, and God gave clear instructions in verse 8. Take the staff, and you and your brother Aaron gather the assembly together. Speak to that rock before their eyes, and it will pour out its water. The command was precise. Speak to the rock, and water would come forth. Moses took the staff and assembled the people as instructed. Yet in verse 10, his words exposed his frustration. Listen, you rebels. Must we bring you water out of this rock? Then, instead of speaking as commanded, verse 11 records that Moses raised his hand and struck the rock twice with his staff. Water flowed abundantly, enough for the entire community and their livestock. But the act itself did not align with what God had said. The consequence followed immediately. In verse 12, the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Because you did not trust in me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land I give them." Though provision was given, disobedience carried a cost. From Kadesh, Moses sent messengers to the king of Edom, requesting permission to pass through their land. In verse 17, the message was clear and respectful. "Please let us pass through your country. We will not go through any field or vineyard or drink water from any well. We will travel along the king's highway and will not turn to the right or to the left until we have passed through your territory." Edom's response, recorded in verse 18, was firm. "You may not pass through here. If you try, we will march out and attack you with the sword." Israel attempted to reassure them, even offering to pay for any water used, but the refusal remained. Edom came out with a strong force to oppose them. Verse 21 concludes that since Edom would not allow passage, Israel turned away and chose another route. At Mount Hor, another significant moment unfolded. God told Moses that Aaron's time had come. In verses 25 and 26, the instructions were given. "Take Aaron and his son Eleazar and bring them up Mount Hor. Remove Aaron's garments and put them on his son Eleazar, for Aaron will be gathered to his people. He will die there." This act symbolized the intikal of priestly authority from father to son. Moses followed these instructions exactly. Aaron's garments were placed upon Eleazar, marking him as the new high priest. Then, as recorded in verse 28, Aaron died there on the mountaintop. The leadership he had carried for so long was now passed on. When the community learned of his death, they mourned for him 30 days, honoring his role among them. Not long after, the Canaanite king of Arad attacked Israel and captured some of them, setting the stage for further conflict and testing as the journey continued. In chapter 21, verse 2, Israel made a solemn vow: "If you will place these people into our hands, we will completely destroy their cities." The Lord answered, handing the Canaanites over to them, and Israel carried out the destruction of both the people and their towns as they continued their journey around Edom. Yet along the way, impatience began to take root among the people. In verse 5, their complaint is recorded with striking clarity. "Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? There is no bread, there is no water, and we loathe this miserable food." Because of this rebellion, the Lord sent venomous serpents among them. The snakes bit the people, and many lost their lives. Recognizing their wrongdoing, the people came to Moses, confessing their sin and asking for intercession. Moses prayed on their behalf. Then, in verse 8, the Lord gave an unusual instruction: "Make a serpent and set it on a pole. Anyone who is bitten can look at it and live." Moses obeyed, crafting a bronze serpent and lifting it up on a pole. As verse 9 explains, whenever someone was bitten and turned their gaze toward the bronze serpent, that person lived. The journey continued. Later, when they arrived at Beer, the Lord provided water, this time without complaint or resistance. Instead, the people lifted their voices in song, celebrating the well and expressing gratitude for God's provision even in the wilderness. From there, they sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, requesting permission to pass through his land. The message, recorded in verse 22, was straightforward: "Let us pass through your country. We will not turn aside into any field or vineyard, nor drink water from any well. We will remain on the king's highway until we have passed through your territory." Sihon refused this request and instead marched out to confront Israel in battle at Jahaz. Verse 24 recounts what followed. Israel defeated him with the sword and took possession of his land. extending from the Arnon to the Jabbok, though not beyond, because the Ammonite border was strongly fortified. Israel captured all the Amorite cities, including Heshbon, and settled in them. Then they turned their attention toward Bashan. Og, king of Bashan, came out with his entire army to meet them in battle at Edrei. In verse 34, the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Do not be afraid of him, for I have delivered him into your hands along with his whole army and his land." The outcome is recorded in verse 35. They struck him down, his sons and all his people, leaving no survivors, and they took possession of his land. After these victories, Israel camped in the plains of Moab, across the Jordan from Jericho. Balak, son of Zippor, king of Moab, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. Chapter 22, verse 3, captures his reaction. Moab was filled with fear because the people were so numerous. Indeed, they were overwhelmed with dread because of Israel. In response, Balak sent messengers to summon Balaam, son of Beor. His message, recorded in verses 5 and 6, revealed his strategy. "A people has come out of Egypt. They cover the face of the land and have settled next to me. Now come and put a curse on these people, because they are too powerful for me. Perhaps then I will be able to defeat them and drive them out of the land. For I know that those you bless are blessed, and those you curse are cursed." Balaam invited the officials to stay overnight while he sought the Lord's guidance. God's answer, given in verse 12, was unmistakable. "Do not go with them. You must not curse these people, because they are blessed." Balaam relayed this message to the officials and sent them away. But Balak was persistent. He sent a second group, more distinguished and bearing greater promises. Balaam responded in verses 18 and 19. "Even if Balak were to give me all the silver and gold in his palace, I could not do anything, great or small, to go beyond the command of the Lord my God. Stay here tonight as the others did, and I will find out what else the Lord will tell me." That night, God allowed Balaam to go with them, but with a strict command. He was to speak only what God told him. So Balaam set out early, saddling his donkey and beginning the journey. Yet verse 22 reveals a tension. God was angered by his going, and the angel of the Lord stood in the road to oppose him. The donkey saw the angel, standing with a drawn sword, and turned off the path into a field. Balaam struck the animal to force it back onto the road. This happened again, and then a third time in a narrow place where there was no room to turn. Finally, the donkey lay down under Balaam, and he beat it once more. Then, in verse 28, a remarkable moment unfolded. The Lord opened the donkey's mouth, and it spoke to Balaam, saying, "What have I done to you to make you beat me these 3 times?" Balaam answered the donkey in anger, even saying he would kill it if he had a sword in his hand. The donkey responded by reminding him of its faithful service, asking if it had ever behaved this way before. At that moment, the Lord opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with a drawn sword. He bowed low and fell face down. The angel explained in verse 33, "The donkey saw me and turned away from me these 3 times. If it had not turned away, I would certainly have killed you by now, but I would have spared it." Balaam acknowledged his sin and offered to turn back, but he was instructed to continue the journey, speaking only what he was told. When Balaam finally met Balak, he made his position clear in verse 38. "I cannot say whatever I please. I must speak only what God puts in my mouth." Together, they built 7 altars and offered bulls and rams. Balaam's first oracle, recorded in chapter 23, verse 8, declared, "How can I curse those whom God has not cursed? How can I denounce those whom the Lord has not denounced?" Instead of cursing Israel, he pronounced blessing over them. Balak was angered, but Balaam answered in verse 12, "Must I not speak what the Lord puts in my mouth?" A second attempt was made from another vantage point, repeating the same offerings. This time, Balaam's message in verses 19 and 20 proclaimed, "God is not human that he should lie, nor a human being that he should change his mind. Does he speak and then not act? Does he promise and not fulfill? I have received a command to bless. He has blessed, and I cannot change it." Still determined, Balak brought Balaam to the top of Peor for a third attempt. But in chapter 24, verse 2, as Balaam looked out and saw Israel encamped tribe by tribe, the Spirit of God came upon him. His third oracle honored the ordered camp of Israel and foretold their rising power and triumph. Balak clapped his hands in fury and commanded Balaam to depart at once. Yet Balaam continued, delivering a fourth oracle that stretched far beyond the present moment and pointed ahead to what was yet to come. In verses 17 and 18, a well-known prophecy is spoken. I see him, though not at this time. I behold him, though he is not near. A star will rise out of Jacob. A scepter will emerge from Israel. This ruler would strike down the leaders of Moab and bring destruction upon the sons of tumult. Edom would be subdued, and Seir, its enemy, would also fall under his power, while Israel would grow strong and prevail. The man who had been summoned to pronounce a curse instead spoke repeated blessings. Yet while Israel remained encamped at Shittim, a grave crisis arose that placed the entire nation in danger. Chapter 25, verse 1 records how it began. While Israel was dwelling in Shittim, the men of Israel engaged in sexual immorality with the women of Moab. This behavior was not limited to a few individuals. It spread widely among the people. The Moabite women invited the Israelite men to participate in the sacrifices offered to their gods. The men accepted the invitations, ate the sacrificial food, and bowed down in worship to these foreign deities. Verse 3 names the god involved. Israel joined themselves to Baal of Peor, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against them. What Balaam had been unable to bring about through spoken curses, the Moabites succeeded in accomplishing through temptation and enticement. The Lord's response came swiftly. In verse 4, he instructed Moses to take all the leaders of the people, execute them, and display them publicly before him so that his fierce anger might be turned away from Israel. As Moses and the entire assembly wept at the entrance to the tent of meeting, an Israelite man brazenly brought a Midianite woman into the camp in full sight of all. When Phinehas, son of Eleazar, saw this, he rose from among the assembly and followed the man into the tent. Verse 8 recounts the act. He entered after the Israelite and drove a spear through both of them, through the man and into the woman's body. This decisive action brought an end to the plague that had broken out among the people. However, the cost was devastating. Verse 9 records that 24,000 died as a result of the plague. The Lord commended Phinehas for his zeal. In verses 11 and 12, the Lord declared that Phinehas, son of Eleazar and grandson of Aaron the priest, had turned away his wrath from the Israelites because he was zealous for his honor among them. Because of this, God granted him a covenant of peace. Furthermore, the Lord established with him and his descendants a lasting covenant of priesthood because he was zealous for his God and made atonement for the Israelites. The Israelite man who was slain was Zimri, son of Salu, a leader of a Simeonite family. The Midianite woman was Cosbi, daughter of Zur, a chief among the Midianites. The Lord then commanded Moses in verse 17 to regard the Midianites as enemies and to strike them, because they had deliberately led Israel into sin through their schemes. After the plague had ceased, the Lord spoke again to Moses and to Eleazar, son of Aaron. Chapter 26, verse 2 contains his instruction. A census was to be taken of the entire Israelite community, organized by families, counting all men 20 years old and above who were able to serve in Israel's army. This marked the second census. Nearly 40 years after the first was taken at Mount Sinai, the tribes were counted one by one. Reuben numbered 43,730, fewer than before. Simeon was reduced to 22,200, having lost more than half its men, likely due to the judgment at Peor. Gad counted 40,500. Judah had grown to 76,500. Issachar numbered 64,300. Zebulun had 60,500. Manasseh increased significantly to 52,700. Ephraim counted 32,000. Benjamin stood at 45,600. Dan numbered 64,400. Asher had 53,400. Naphtali counted 45,400. Verse 51 gives the total number, 601,730 men. This figure closely matched the earlier total of 603,550. Despite 4 decades marked by death and wandering, the Lord had preserved the strength and size of the nation. The Levites were counted separately, totaling 23,000 males. Verses 64 and 65 highlight the fulfillment of the Lord's earlier judgment. Not one of those counted in the first census at Sinai remained alive, except for Caleb and Joshua. The entire first generation had perished in the wilderness, just as the Lord had declared. Following the census, a notable case was brought forward by the daughters of Zelophehad. Chapter 27, verse 1 introduces them. They were Mahlah, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah, daughters of Zelophehad, son of Hepher, within the clans of Manasseh, son of Joseph. These 5 women stood before Moses, Eleazar, the leaders, and the whole assembly. In verses 3 and 4, they presented their appeal. Their father had died in the wilderness. He was not among those who joined in rebellion with Korah against the Lord, but had died for his own sin. He left no sons, and they asked why their father's name should disappear from his clan simply because he had no male heir. Why should our father's name vanish from his family line simply because he left no son? Grant us a possession among our father's relatives. Moses brought their appeal before the Lord, and the Lord gave his ruling. In verses 7 and 8, a new statute was established. What the daughters of Zelophehad are saying is correct. You must indeed give them property as an inheritance among their father's relatives, and transfer their father's inheritance to them. Then Moses was instructed to speak to the Israelites, declaring that if a man dies without leaving a son, his inheritance is to pass to his daughter. The Lord continued by setting forth the complete order of succession, extending through brothers, uncles, and the nearest kin within the family line. After these instructions, the Lord told Moses to ascend the mountain and view the land that had been promised. Verse 13 continues, After you have seen it, you also will be gathered to your people, just as your brother Aaron was. Moses would behold the land, yet he would not enter it because of his disobedience at the waters of Meribah, where he failed to uphold the Lord's holiness before the people. Even so, Moses responded with a heart focused on others rather than himself. In verses 16 and 17, his plea is recorded. May the Lord, the God who gives breath to every living being, appoint a man over this community, someone who will go out before them and come in before them, who will lead them out and bring them in, so that the Lord's people will not be like sheep without a shepherd, especially in times of danger and loss. Moses' concern rested on the future of Israel's leadership. The Lord answered him in verse 18, saying, Take Joshua son of Nun, a man in whom is the Spirit, and lay your hand on him. On the Sabbath, additional offerings were required beyond the daily sacrifices, emphasizing the sacredness of that day. At the beginning of each month, marked by the new moon, special offerings were brought: 2 bulls, 1 ram, 7 lambs without defect, along with a male goat presented as a sin offering to make atonement. The appointed festivals throughout the year each carried their own prescribed sacrifices. During Passover and the Festival of Unleavened Bread, offerings were made daily for 7 days. The Festival of Weeks, the Festival of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, and the Festival of Tabernacles all included specific instructions regarding sacrifices. Among these, the Festival of Tabernacles was the most extensive, with bulls offered in decreasing numbers over the course of 7 days, beginning with 13 on the first day and gradually reducing to 7 on the 7th day, each accompanied by the required grain and drink offerings. Chapter 29, verse 39, brings these instructions together, stating that in addition to vow offerings and free will offerings, these were to be presented to the Lord at the appointed festivals. These rhythms of sacrifice structured Israel's worship life, marking time with continual remembrance and devotion. Chapter 30 turns to the subject of vows. When a man made a vow to the Lord or took an oath to bind himself by a pledge, verse 2 declares that he must not break his word, but must do everything he has spoken. His commitment stood firm and could not be set aside. For women, the matter involved additional considerations. A young woman living in her father's house could have her vow either upheld or canceled by her father when he heard of it. In the case of a married woman, her husband held similar authority to confirm or nullify her vows upon hearing them. Timing played a crucial role. Verse 14 explains that if a husband said nothing to his wife from day to day after hearing of her vow, then he confirmed it. His silence served as agreement, making the vow binding. However, if he later nullified it after allowing time to pass, he would bear the consequences of her obligation. Widows and divorced women stood in a different position, with no male authority over them. Verse 9 declares that any vow or pledge they made remained binding upon them. The Lord then commanded Moses to carry out judgment against the Midianites. Chapter 31 verse 2 records the command, "Take vengeance on the Midianites for the Israelites. After that, you will be gathered to your people. This would be Moses' final campaign before his death. A force of 12,000 men was assembled, 1,000 from each tribe. Verse 7 recounts the battle. They fought against Midian as the Lord had commanded Moses, and every man among the enemy was put to death. Among those who fell were 5 kings of Midian, and as verse 8 adds, Balaam son of Beor was also killed with the sword. He met the same judgment he had helped bring upon others through his counsel. The Israelites took captive the women and children and seized livestock and goods as plunder. When they returned, Moses was angered by what he saw. His rebuke in verse 15 was direct. Have you allowed all the women to live? He reminded them that these women had followed Balaam's guidance and had been involved in leading Israel into unfaithfulness to the Lord during the incident at Peor, which resulted in a devastating plague. Because of this, Moses gave further instructions in verses 17 and 18. Now kill all the boys and kill every woman who has known a man by lying with him. But all the young girls who have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourselves. This severe judgment reflected the gravity of the earlier transgression at Peor, where 24,000 lives were lost as a result of Israel's sin. The warriors and the captives stayed outside the camp for 7 days to undergo purification as commanded. After this, the spoil taken from the campaign was carefully counted. There were 32,000 young women who had not known a man, along with 675,000 sheep, 72,000 cattle, and 61,000 donkeys. The total was divided into 2 equal portions, one for the soldiers who had gone into battle and the other for the wider community of Israel. From each portion, a tribute was set apart for the priests and the Levites according to the Lord's instruction. Then the officers brought an astonishing report, recorded in verse 49. They said to Moses, "Your servants have taken account of the soldiers under our command, and not one of them is missing." In the aftermath of such a large-scale conflict, there had not been a single casualty among the Israelite forces. In response, they presented an offering of gold, armlets, bracelets, signet rings, earrings, and necklaces, amounting to 16,750 shekels, given as a gesture of gratitude before the Lord. At that time, the tribes of Reuben and Gad possessed very large herds and flocks. Observing the regions of Jazer and Gilead, they recognized that the land was especially suitable for livestock. In chapter 32, verses 4 and 5, they made their request known, saying, "The land the Lord subdued before the people of Israel is suitable for livestock, and your servants have livestock. If we have found favor in your sight, let this land be given to your servants as a possession. Do not require us to cross the Jordan." Moses reacted sharply, recalling the earlier failure of faith when the spies discouraged the people. In verses 6 and 7, he answered them, "Shall your brothers go to war while you remain here? Why do you turn the hearts of the people of Israel away from going over into the land that the Lord has given them?" His concern was that their request might weaken the resolve of the nation at a critical moment. However, the men of Reuben and Gad clarified their intentions. In verses 16 and 17, they explained their plan. "We will build enclosures here for our livestock and cities for our children. But we ourselves will be armed and ready to go ahead of the people of Israel until we have brought them to their place." They pledged to take their place at the front lines of the battle and would not return to their homes until every tribe had received its inheritance. This assurance satisfied Moses, though he laid down firm conditions. In verse 23, he warned them clearly, "If you fail to do this, you will be sinning against the Lord, and you can be sure that your sin will find you out." The agreement was then confirmed in the presence of Eleazar the priest, Joshua son of Nun, and the leaders of the tribes. If they fulfilled their promise to fight alongside their fellow Israelites, they would receive the land of Gilead. If they failed, they would forfeit any claim to it. So Moses granted their request. Verse 33 records that he gave to the Gadites, the Reubenites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, son of Joseph, the kingdom of Sihon, king of the Amorites, and the kingdom of Og, king of Bashan, the entire region with its cities and surrounding territories. They began to rebuild the cities, fortify them, and settle their families, all while preparing themselves for the coming campaign in Canaan. Moses then documented each stage of Israel's 40-year journey through the wilderness. Chapter 33 begins with these words. These are the stages of the people of Israel when they went out of the land of Egypt by their companies under the leadership of Moses and Aaron. The record traces their path from Ramesses through the wilderness and across the Red Sea. It recounts their arrival at the bitter waters of Marah, their stay at Elim with its 12 springs and 70 palm trees, and their encampment at Mount Sinai where they received the law of God. It also remembers places of judgment such as Kibroth Hattaavah, where those who craved meat were buried, and continues through many other locations across the desert. The account stretches forward to Mount Hor, where Aaron died in the 40th year after the Exodus, and concludes on the plains of Moab by the Jordan, across from Jericho, where the people now stood on the threshold of the Promised Land. There, the Lord gave specific instructions concerning the conquest. In verse 52, he commanded, "Drive out all the inhabitants of the land before you, destroy all their carved images, cast down their molten idols, and demolish all their high places." This directive was meant to remove every source of idolatry from the land. Yet in verse 55, a solemn warning was added. "If you do not drive out the inhabitants of the land from before you, then those whom you allow to remain shall become as barbs in your eyes and thorns in your sides, and they shall trouble you in the land where you dwell." Chapter 34 then defines the boundaries of the land of Canaan in careful detail. The southern border extended from the Dead Sea across the wilderness of Zin to the brook of Egypt and on to the Great Sea. The western border followed the coastline of the Mediterranean. The northern boundary stretched from the Great Sea to Mount Hor and onward through specified landmarks, while the eastern border ran down along the Jordan River to the Dead Sea. Eleazar the priest and Joshua son of Nun were appointed to oversee the division of the land, assisted by one leader from each tribe to ensure fairness. The Lord also commanded that the Levites be given towns within the territories of the other tribes. In chapter 35, verse 6, it is stated, "The cities that you give to the Levites shall include 6 cities of refuge, where a manslayer may flee, and in addition to them you shall give 42 cities." Altogether, 48 towns were assigned to the Levites, distributed proportionally throughout the land so that they would dwell among all the tribes. 6 of these Levitical towns were designated as cities of refuge. Verse 11 explains their purpose. "You shall select cities to be cities of refuge for you, that the manslayer who kills any person without intent may flee there." These cities provided protection from the avenger of blood until a proper trial could be held before the assembly. The law made a clear distinction between deliberate murder and accidental killing. If someone struck another with an iron object or used a weapon in hostility and caused death, it was considered murder, and the penalty was death. As verse 16 declares, "The murderer shall be put to death." Intent, hatred, and premeditation defined the seriousness of the crime. But there were also cases where death occurred without intention. Verses 22 and 23 describe such situations. If someone pushed another suddenly without hostility, or threw an object without intending harm, or dropped a stone without seeing the person, resulting in death, then the act was not treated as murder. In such cases, the community would judge carefully between the parties. If the killing was deemed accidental, the individual was required to remain in the city of refuge. Verse 25 explains, "He shall live in it until the death of the high priest who was anointed with the holy oil." Only after the death of the high priest could the person safely return to his own land and home. The requirement for justice was strict. Multiple witnesses were necessary in capital cases. Verse 30 states, "If anyone kills a person, the murderer shall be put to death on the evidence of witnesses, but no one shall be put to death on the testimony of a single witness." Furthermore, no ransom could be accepted in place of punishment in cases of murder. Justice could not be bought. The land itself was to be cleansed from bloodshed through rightful judgment. The final chapter addresses the matter of inheritance within the tribes. Leaders from the family of Gilead raised a concern regarding the daughters of Zelophehad. In chapter 36, verse 3, they explained, "If they are married to any of the sons of the other tribes of the people of Israel, then their inheritance will be taken from the inheritance of our fathers and added to the inheritance of the tribe into which they marry." The Lord's answer preserved both the inheritance rights of the daughters and the integrity of each tribe's portion. Verse 6 records the command, "Let them marry whom they think best, only they shall marry within the clan of the tribe of their father. In this way, the daughters were free to choose their husbands, yet they were to do so within their own tribal family, ensuring that the inheritance remained within its appointed boundaries. Zelophehad's daughters honored the command they had received. Each of the 5 sisters chose to marry within their own clan, taking husbands from among their relatives so that their family's inheritance would remain securely within the tribe of Manasseh. In doing so, they demonstrated both obedience and wisdom, preserving what had been entrusted to them while respecting the structure given to their people. The narrative reaches its closing statement in verse 13, marking the completion of a significant journey. It affirms that these were the commandments and ordinances the Lord delivered through Moses to the people of Israel. This moment took place on the plains of Moab, beside the Jordan River, directly across from Jericho, the very threshold of the land that had long been promised to their ancestors. At this point, everything had been set in order. A new generation stood prepared, shaped by years of wandering, instruction, correction, and renewal. The laws had been clarified, leadership had been established, and the people had been organized according to their tribes and families. They were no longer the same group that had once left Egypt in uncertainty. They had been refined through trials and guided step by step toward readiness. Moses, though nearing the end of his own journey, had faithfully communicated every instruction given to him. The people now carried both the responsibility and the hope of what lay ahead. Before them stood the land they had heard about for so long, a place of promise, inheritance, and covenant fulfillment. Behind them stretched a history filled with lessons of trust, obedience, failure, and restoration. This closing scene is not merely an ending, but a transition. It signals the conclusion of preparation and the beginning of fulfillment. The people are poised to move forward, to step into what had been assured to them generations before, guided by the commands they had received and the faithfulness of the one who led them. As this powerful account comes to a close, it leaves us with more than history. It leaves us with reflection. The journey of the Israelites reveals a pattern that still speaks today. Moments of doubt, seasons of growth, consequences of disobedience, and the steady presence of divine guidance. From the wilderness to the edge of promise, every step carried meaning, shaping a people who were learning to trust, to follow, and to remember. Their story invites us to consider our own paths. How often do we find ourselves in seasons of waiting, unsure of what lies ahead? How often are we called to remain faithful even when the destination is not yet in sight? Just like them, we are shaped in the process, refined through challenges, and prepared for what is to come. The faithfulness seen throughout this journey reminds us that purpose is not lost in delay, and preparation is never wasted. Every instruction given, every trial faced, and every victory gained contributes to something greater than the moment itself. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What lessons have you learned from the complete story of the Book of Numbers? What moments stood out to you the most, and how have they impacted your understanding? If this message resonated with you, take a moment to support this video. Like it, share it with others, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective matters, and your voice adds to this ongoing conversation. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this, where we continue exploring meaningful stories and timeless truths together.